and their resorts. We are here in Enghien-les-Bains, that is Lake Enghien, and we are just outside the Casino Barrière for the 2013 World Series of Poker Europe. We've been here for 2 weeks, and we have one more piece of hardware to award, and one of these three players will win it. And of course, alongside with the bracelet, they will take home €1 million. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all. And I got to tell you, the workout facilities and spas, at least the one hotel that I saw, were really, really nice.
Well, it's the Sparks Spa and Resort.
Yeah, the Sparks one. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they've got 2 great pools, and one of the pools, and I've mentioned
the water
before,
features.
Yeah, they've got 8 different little features in there. It's pretty cool.
I like the little lap where they have a sort of racetrack of water where you can go against the current off of the side. That was fun.
That is very cool, yes. I imagine this place, Enghien-les-Bains, would be a fantastic weekend getaway if you lived in Paris. Come here for the weekend during the summer.
Even from London, it was easy. That's where I came from.
Yeah.
Total travel time was around 3 hours because you just go right for Eurostar, Gare du Nord, and then Gare du Nord is a 15-minute train ride to here. Yeah. It's easy.
Fabrice bet 70,000. Went check on the flop. Mateos trying to figure this one out. And the Spaniard's going to raise. So I went check on the flop.
Adrian, we raised 250.
And now Mateos is going to check raise the turn.
Which is a decent spot for him to do it. Which is a great spot. Look at him. Yeah, because how strong can Fabrice be if he's not betting the flop? And so it's a great spot for him to
well, that's what we mentioned earlier.
Check raise with their right.
When Fabrice checks it back, he's capping his range.
Right. And I would have liked to see Fabrice maybe be c-betting a little bit more for exactly that reason. And then it just looks so weak when he bets on the turn. It's easy to take away.
Sometimes.
From him there. So I don't know.
I mean, he could theoretically have a weak jack in his range.
He could, and he might even end up folding that on some rivers. So it really puts Matteo in a great spot. Matteo, I'm really impressed. Has really been finding a lot of the classic spots where he's putting aggression with marginal hands.
You loved the 4-bet earlier.
Yeah, that was elementary almost, you know.
Elementary to you and fairly advanced for most of the poker world.
So I do like how he's playing.
Of spades,
ace high flop, possible spade flush draw. Dominic was the original raiser. Mateos now up to almost $6.5 million, as you can see in the top left-hand corner of your screen.
And Dominic's definitely been, I think, the tightest player of these three, really picking his spots. And I think he was honest earlier at the table when he said, waiting for someone else, he's waiting for someone else to make a big mistake. I think he pretty much is. And now he might think that Soulier is getting a little frustrated and wants to play maybe a pot against him and use that tighter image to his advantage. But
Fabrice has just check raised to 185,000. Back over to Dominic.
And Dominic's not going to make a big mistake. He's going to get out of the way.
Fabrice with a big flop there. Flush draw and a pair of 7s. Nietzsche had 1 out.
Come on.
Could have cut the 3 of hearts and that was it.
Yeah.
So Fabrice up to 2.6 million. Dominic down to 2.2 million. Our chip leader continues to be the 19-year-old Adrian Mateos, who now has 6.425 million. Once again, we have just about 11 million, a little bit over 11 million chips in play. Blinds are 15,000, 30,000. They'll jump up to 20,000, 40,000 in 21 minutes.
Well, there we see his c-bets at 75% from the graphic, Soulier. And so I don't know, maybe we're saying he's not c-betting enough. 75% is pretty good. Obviously, when you're playing shorter-handed, you can probably do it a little bit more. But with the relative stack sizes and not wanting to put a big risk, maybe he wants to shorten it to a 2-street game, and he's going to be checking back a lot of flops.
7 of diamond and a 6 of club on the flop.
Dominic checks. Mateos.
Adrian went 75.
And The continuation bets near 90% for Mateos. He's at 89%, and Nietzsche's at 86%. So Fabrice is c-betting the least amount. That said, I don't know if it's too small. I think I might side with you. Nietzsche check raises. Mateos not going anywhere. Pot now 610,000.
This one is building. Nietzsche is probably really strong here.
Nietzsche checks. We've seen a ton of check raising and then checking the turn.
And that's a very quick, big bet from the chip leader.
Yeah, hand it to these players. There's not much tanking going on at all.
It's almost like he's just willing to go with his hand because he has enough of it, Mateos. Yeah.
Wow, Mateos with the 5-4. Strong play.
And Nietzsche was onto something, but he just didn't want to continue with it. In fairness, Mateos probably wasn't going anywhere on the turn. He might have even raised a bet from Nietzsche on the turn. I don't know if I like Nietzsche picking that spot for the check raise, but he did have the best hand.
Mateos now up to 6.7 million chips. Nietzsche down below 2 million. And if you're wondering if he's getting short stack, he still has more than 60 big blinds.
Average bet 65,000.
And Mateos is just probably getting a little more confident as he's winning these intermediate pots, and he hasn't seen what his opponents have had right away, but he knows that he's been winning some hands without having strong holdings. So as confidence grows, that can be dangerous as well.
How much does fatigue play a factor? Now, these guys had yesterday off, so it's not a matter of playing 4 days in a row. They played for a few days in a row, then they had a day off, and then they came back today. But as deep as these players are, we could be here for a few more hours. Does fatigue play a factor at all?
It absolutely plays a factor. And then that might have been one of the factors that led to Shigshээ maybe making the risky play that he made when he had played relatively tight before that. To an inexperienced player, they might not be used to sitting in a seat for such a long time, especially when it gets shorthanded and having to play so many hands in so many scenarios to where they just get kind of fed up. These three players here, though, are all pretty experienced. They've been here before. The fatigue might affect them a little bit, but I would say that they're probably experienced enough to adjust for it to where it's a minimal effect.
Fabrice takes that one down. I asked Jackie Glazier earlier, and I'll ask you the same question. I've seen other pros do it. Why do pros cover up their mouth? And in Fabrice's case, the same thing with the scarf.
Well, I think a lot of times it's because, for one, it's a hygiene thing. Because when you're touching the chips and the cards and everything, it's not always clean because you're not sure who's washing their hands, where these chips have been. And so rather than putting their hand on their mouth, they use a scarf. Another advantage could be to not give away information based on movements of the mouth showing emotion. So I've heard people talk about both reasons. I do that for both of those reasons.
Kind of a security blanket thing? You want to have something?
I'm not a big security blanket guy, but I don't know. Sometimes it just feels better when your hands, even when you play,
I'll ask you.
There's a lot of pressure. Your hands get sweaty, and maybe you don't want to get that on your face. Or
I'm going to ask my 4-month-old. I give him a little blankie. He sticks it in his mouth right away. I'm going to ask him why. Easy enough. Got a 3-bet here and a call from Mateos, and the pot is already 400,000 chips. And these are the kind of pots that always have the potential to be huge.
It's been seeded.
All spades and, well, a little bit less likely to have a huge pot.
A little less
here.
likely to have a lot of action, and this is kind of flop. Generally favors the chip leader in position.
Even though Nietzsche was the 3-better.
Right. Unless Nietzsche has, an ace-king or some kind of hand with a high spade, it's tough for him to continue.
Well, he's going to put out a little bet. Looks like about 100 and, well, there's 165,000.
And he's c-betting almost his
170.
entire range after the 3-bet with this flop.
And Mateos is going to call.
Right.
Now, Mateos, can he float with a lot of hands?
He's probably floating with most things. Anything that can get there in some little way, and maybe even sometimes with air, just because Dominique has shown that he's willing to shut down and not make a big mistake, like with the King 10. Dominic tried to take it on the flop. It didn't work. He pretty much shut down on the turn and gave up. Now he might be shutting down again. And so Mateos is just figuring if he just hangs around long enough, he's going to know what's going on.
Mateos is just a runaway train right now, on his way to 7 million chips if he wins this hand.
335,000.
Dominic Nietzsche checks the turn. Mateos bets 335.
35.
Back over to Nietzsche. All right, looks like he's going to give it up.
Give it up
Sure
again.
enough.
Yeah.
And Mateos just, oh, he had ace-10 actually.
Yeah.
Nietzsche with just nothing, 7-6.
And so Dominic might be getting a little frustrated now, finding the 7-6 to 3-bet. I don't really like his timing or choice of hand for that 3-bet scenario, but if you're going to 3-bet that hand and that flop comes, you probably should bet it.
Is he in the toughest position because the chip leader's directly on his left?
Yeah, for sure. And it really makes it tough for him to play a lot of hands, and especially now that he's getting whittled down a little bit.
Look at this, Mateos now with over 62% of the chips in play. Now up over 7 million. Dominic Nietzsche, by the way, you know, we were joking because, you know, these guys are so deep. There are so many chips in play. He now has under 1.5 million chips. He has under 50 big blinds.
Right.
The big blind.
No reason to panic, but it's getting to the
but
point
he
where
is getting whittled away to where, yeah, but it really isn't panic mode. And that's how poker can go. You have swings, you have runs. Maybe
Adrian on the big
he
blind
wins the next
at
2 or 3
85.
medium-sized pots, and he's right back where he was, or even a little bit over. And so, being a professional who has a lot of experience that he is, he knows that this is capable, and he should stay the course. And here he goes. He's just keeping it on.
he is going to continue fighting. Mateus raises. This is a blind on blind. Nietzsche is going to 3-bet. And he 3-bets with 6-5 of hearts. Mateos gets rid of the 7-6.
I like that a little better than the 7-6 off. Being a little suited gives you a few more options, and you can apply a little more pressure when you get that suited flop.
Nietzsche back over 1.5 million. Still has a lot of work to do. The former bracelet winner, former WPT winner, looking for his first World Series of Poker Europe bracelet. Has over 2 million in career earnings, and will earn himself at least 400,000 euros today.
75,000.
After a fold of Dominique,
Mateos raising.
with the raise of Adrian will win the pots.
Mateos takes it.
Pretty standard.
I mean, it's amazing how composed this 19-year-old is.
Yeah. He hasn't given too much away when he's been playing, and
It just looks like he's been here before.
and he probably has. I mean, he's played these
Not
other
here,
tournaments.
though.
Oh, right. This is a big stage.
I mean,
This is a big
The
stage for poker.
TVs, the TV cameras are here. The lights are here. This is the World Series of Poker.
$1 million
Europe main
euros
event.
on the line. Yeah.
And he seems completely unfazed.
But that's something that any player is capable of getting to
He
this
has to act.
stage
65,000.
has some sort of inner monologue usually, and they internalize those emotions, and it can be a huge storm going on in your head even though you're not showing it.
65.
Alex Cole by Dominique.
And we see these two play another pot now.
Yeah, it seemed like every other hand was Fabrice, but now it's these two guys.
Flop is
People taking
6 and
turns against
4 of
Mateos,
hearts, 7 of
and
diamond.
he's slowly winning.
Dominique check.
Good board for Mateos to bet in
Adrian
position.
bet 75.
And the way Mateos is looking, it just looks like when it gets heads up, he'll have a 4-to-1 chip advantage over whoever it is.
Well, most likely right now, unless one of the other guys doubles through him, he's probably going to be the one taking out the other player.
Certainly looks that way.
Well, with him being in most of the pots, it's just more likely that he's going to be the one who has the hand.
Dominic, check raises.
Dominique re-raise 225.
pretty strong raise size. I don't know if Nietzsche
Adrian calls.
might be a little afraid of this board.
Mateos calls. Pot 610,000.
We have a pot of more than 600.
Turns an interesting
Oh,
card.
man.
Turn is an 8 of club, of spade.
Spade, club, it doesn't make a difference as long as it's not a heart, but it is the 8. And if you were check raising with a pair and a straight draw, you got there.
Right.
Now we've seen Dominic check raise and then shut down. This time he check raises and continues.
Yes, and
And
he's
yeah.
conceivably probably has a big good enough piece where he doesn't feel like folding that on the turn. And it was just a small bet, but there you go.
Wow.
He's just determined.
strong
Dominic
play.
is just changing gears right now, and he's just not willing. He's been battling hard for these pots.
But when Dominic check raises and Mateos calls, I mean, it's three-handed. It's so hard to put these guys on ranges, but is it more likely that Nietzsche has the straight draw?
Well, you see what he did there is he had the ace of hearts. And so it's likely that he's either going to have the ace of hearts, a straight draw, or a made hand. So then if the hearts get there, he can still semi-bluff the turn really strong and go with it maybe, hoping to get the hearts on the river.
I always wonder if that's overrated in Hold'em, especially shorthanded. In PLO, and I play a little bit of PLO, I understand how important it is to have that trump card, you know, the ace-high flush card. But in Hold'em, I mean, if your opponent has the jack-high flush, it's not like he's going to be sitting there going, well, I can't get it in because you might have the ace-high.
Fair enough, but it's also he's making the move on the flop, and it's probably a little less likely that Mateos is going to re-raise him on the flop without a really strong flush draw or having a really strong holding. So then if someone does come back over the top, it's easy to get rid of it because it's kind of a trashy hand, but it's also got that decent blocker to bluff with. So it was a good spot for Dominic, and you got to, you know, hand it to him for not giving up and continually going after it here.
Well, he's another player that he's not going to, he will not fade away. He will fight, and this is a guy that, not Fabrice Soulet who we're looking at here, but Dominic Nietzsche, he's a player that, from what I've seen, if he's going to lose, it's going to be fighting.
Right, right. And you should see that with most pros at this point.
It was 65,000.
Dominic raised 65.
I'd be content just to blind away. Just blind away, I'm good.
It's tough to get to this stage of the tournament with the blind away strategy.
The blind away strategy?
75. Fabrice fold on the big blind.
Nietzsche was the original raiser. Mateos, 3-bets the small blind. Fabrice gets out of the way. Back over to Nietzsche.
Nietzsche maybe wanted to keep his momentum going here, and Mateos maybe wants to kind of nip it in the bud. There's a lot of momentum in poker, especially short-handed. Mateos almost has a little bit of an angry grimace on his face here. Looks very serious. Thinking Mateos might be giving a little away here.
And what do you see?
I think he, well, I just think he might be strong here. He just kind of, yeah.
And sure enough, ace jack of hearts.
And he looked like he was ready to fight.
Like a Spaniard at a bullfight, huh?
Yeah.
There you go. The 19-year-old adds to his chips, and he's up to about 6.8 million, actually 6.75 million. You can see the chip counts underneath the players' names on the top part of your screen. It's a new feature we have here. Hope you enjoy it. As always, we like to keep the show interactive. You can tweet us at WSOP. You can also tweet me at Tuck on Sports.
Adrian raised to 65. Fabrice fold on the small blind.
McLean Card, David Tuckman in the booth here for the 7th Annual World Series of Poker Europe. We're down to just 3 players, 1 million euros up top.
Another 3-bet pot here between Nietzsche and Mateos. This is fun to watch these guys.
These guys have, I mean, I don't have the stats right in front of me, but these guys over the last, say, 15, 20 hands, we have seen probably 50% of the hands being 3-bet.
And Nietzsche finally 3-bets with a premium hand that doesn't get a lot of action. He's happy to take down the pops, maybe a little frustrated that Mateos didn't want to get a little more creative on that one.
I think it's got to be frustrating. I mean, he's been 3-betting with 6-5. He's been 3-betting with 7-6, getting action on those spots.
Right, exactly.
3-bets with Jackson doesn't get it. That's got to be a little frustrating. Here's a look at the Frenchman, Fabrice Soulier, who won his first and only World Series of Poker bracelet in 2011, pardon me, at the 10K horse event. Won over $600,000 in that tournament.
Fabrice, right, 65.
He has 5 World Series of Poker final tables, a WPT final table.
And Adrian Cole, so we're going to see a flop.
And his deepest run in the main event, he finished in 49th in the 2009 World Series of Poker main event. His career earnings stand at $4.1 million. He's matched up here against Mateos. He's in position.
And here we see him checking a flop again, but that is another very wet board.
On the turn.
I don't think he would want to bet a jack or maybe a 9-10 or something that has a lot of value to get down to the river.
Now the jack on the turn is an interesting card because Fabrice could theoretically be checking back a jack.
Absolutely.
He could easily have tripped jacks right now.
And now Mateos wants to find out.
You got it.
Nope, he was just checking to give up.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit, he says. Oh, Soulier, I don't like that fold. He has got so many good cards in the river and his hand's so strong. I would have bet that flop. He has the ace of diamonds too. If a diamond comes in the turn, he's still got a pretty strong hand.
Fabrice strikes me as a little bit more, and obviously I don't want to just pigeonhole him because he's clearly a very good player, but a little bit more fitter fold as opposed to Dominic Nietzsche and our chip player Mateos.
When Fabrice does his little pit bull, sometimes he picks a pot and he chooses to hang on to that one that he's going to fight for. I guess this one he didn't get too wedded to it. He doesn't want to play a big hand and get outplayed. He didn't want to have to be forced to make a big call on the river.
And by the way, and he's firmly in second place. I mean,
right.
He doesn't want to give up that advantage. He's 800,000 chips above Dominic.
And it's a difference of 210,000 euros, right? Between
very significant. Pretty raggy board here. 9-deuce-3. Rainbow. 3 ways to the flop.
By Adrian and Fabrice.
This was raised by Dominic and called in both the small blind and big blind.
Dominic bet 105.
Tell you, Mateos is just relentless. He doesn't give any pot away. He just doesn't. It's never like it's.
And he shouldn't be as a chip leader right now. He should be putting on this pressure all the time.
Whether it's raising, whether it's calling, whether it's betting, he just doesn't. Sometimes if you're playing against a guy like that, man, don't you ever just fold? Can't you just give me a pot?
People have said that to me before, and I think they say that to a lot of players. And the answer is no, not right now when I've got so much fold equity because it's so costly for you to make a wrong decision, and for me it's not that costly. So for me it's a low risk, for you it's a high risk. That means I should be playing more.
Ace on the turn.
And this was, I think, our first 3-way to a flop that we'd seen since it's been 3-handed.
We haven't seen a ton of those. And now the ace comes, and now Mateos is going to check call the flop on a 9-deuce-3 board. He leads into Dominic when the ace flops, when the ace turns.
Which now he's conceivably repping that he had a wheel draw on the flop.
4-5.
With either a 4-5, or he could have had an ace-4, an ace-5, which I think.
How about just queen 10?
Just air balls, and it's a good card to bluff. And Nietzsche didn't really have much. He was just floating to maybe hope to pick up a straight draw.
Well, no, I mean Nietzsche actually he was the pre-flop raiser, and he actually bet the flop.
Right. Okay. And then
he bet the flop with Jack
just called.
Mateos just called with 2 overs.
And Mateos is right. He's hanging around. He knows that these guys are going to give up in a lot of scenarios because it's so risky for them to continue, and so he can count on them giving up and conceding to his aggression, and he's picking up all sorts of small little pots like this and extending his lead, and he's playing how he should be.
Adrian Mateos playing fantastic poker, back up over 7 million chips, has more than 62% of the chips in play. He raises again on the button.
Fabrice 3-ways 205. Dominic fold and Adrian fold.
3-bet from Fabrice, and Fabrice is going to take that one down. He's not going to worry about hitting an ace or a king this time.
Yeah, it's a little bit nicer sometimes to be able to 3-bet the ace-king rather than just come in for an open and then get a flop where it doesn't connect, as it often doesn't, because it's such a pretty hand pre-flop, and it has so much value, and yet so often doesn't connect that it's nice to get a little value out of it without necessarily having to see a flop too.
This very well might be the last hand before the break, and this next break will be a dinner break, so these players will go on a 60-minute dinner break. And when we come back, the blinds will be 20,000, 40,000 with a 5,000 ante.
Big blind 30.
It's only fitting that
85,000.
we get a raise here from Mateos.
85 and Dominic 4.
Dominic gives it up, and we might actually get one more hand
Yeah,
in.
why not? So over this last level, we've basically seen Mateos slowly extend his lead just a little bit more, and Soulier's stayed about even, but Nietzsche has dropped about 1 million chips, huh?
When we came back, and I believe we have one more hand in, and we do. When we came back from when we got 3-handed and they took the 5-minute break, and we came back in that break, Fabrice Soulier had about 3.2 million chips. Nietzsche had about 2.3 million chips. So Mateos
so
has
they both lost a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Mateos has essentially taken, you know, what, 20% or so from Nietzsche, or a little bit more, maybe 30% from Nietzsche and about 20% from Fabrice, and just added to his own stack. So it has been the Adrian Mateos show for at least the last hour.
And I'd expect it to continue that way, you know, unless there is some big sort of cooler hand where someone wakes up with a premium hand and someone else has a very nearly as good premium hand.
Get a raise here from Nietzsche, a call from Fabrice. I'm really intrigued to see how these players, they're going to go to dinner. They're going to hear about what's been going on in the last hour or so. They're going to be able to regroup. I'm really intrigued to see how these players come back and combat what Mateos has been doing.
And if that'll result in maybe more flatting pre-flop or more 3-betting and 4-betting action.
Get a check from Fabrice.
Dominic bet 80 and Fabrice fold. Player on the dinner break.
I'm starving.
60-minute dinner break.
And Nietzsche is going to win the last hand before dinner break. Nietzsche still at about 1.7 million chips. Fabrice Soulier at 2.6 million. Mateos at 6.9 million, just under 7 million. And these players are going to go on a 60-minute break. We are here just about 7 miles outside of Paris in this beautiful, quaint little town for the 7th annual World Series of Poker Europe. As we leave you for dinner, we'll leave you with coverage of last year's main event and other things that are going on at the World Series of Poker Europe.
Bon appetit.
Won a World Series of Poker bracelet. Our chip leader, though, the young Spaniard, 19 years old, Adrian Mateos. There he is with nearly 7 million chips. Well over 60,000 chips. 60% of the chips in play is our chip leader. Second place is Frenchman Fabrice Soulier, looking to become the first Frenchman to ever win a World Series of Poker Europe main event. And the short stack, who still has over 40 big blinds. The German, he's won a WPT event. He's won a World Series of Poker bracelet. It's Dominic Nietzsche. So 3-handed blinds now, 20,000, 40,000 with a 5,000 ante. I'm David Tuckman. Joining me in the booth from Poker Listings, Mark Convey. Mark, how are you?
Good evening, David. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Great.
Good stuff. You know, it's a great way to cap off 2 weeks. Yesterday, a storybook finish for Daniel Negreanu after he wins the Player of the Year to cap that off with a championship, his 6th bracelet. It really was fantastic. And this has been a really entertaining final table from Benny Spindler early on to Mateos recently. And Mateos starts off right where he left off after dinner break. Also in the booth with us continues to be McLean Carr. I keep wanting to say McLean Mick-Carr.
I understand.
I want to put the
a
Mick
beautiful thing.
Yeah,
you know.
McLean Carr in the booth as well.
Adrian, big blind.
What have you, Mark? What have you been noticing? Now, obviously, you have not been watching the stream. You've been on the floor covering it on a hand-by-hand basis for Poker Listings. What have you been noticing on the table in terms of just the momentum, the dynamic of this table?
Well, I kind of knew that Benny would come out swinging this morning. I mean, I didn't see his whole card, so maybe he was just finding good cards. But Benny Spinner's the type of guy who I thought was either going to win or go home early. You know, it's all about the top prize for him. A couple of the other guys, I think they've just sort of been fairly patient at times, just waiting for other people to sort of go a bit crazy around them, moving through the gears. I thought Chip Leader Matteo, I thought he took his time to start with, you know, and then was starting to build up a bit.
Oh, hang on a second here.
All in.
We've got a raise, a 3-bet, and then an all-in from Fabrice. And Nietzsche making a move there with King 3. And I was really curious to see how these players come back.
Pocket sixes for Fabrice.
Pocket sixes for Fabrice.
Yeah, cool.
That's a pretty big shove there.
It is.
I mean, Dominic had 40 big blinds.
Right, and these two have been playing back at each other a lot, and maybe Fabrice has gotten some information from his friends at home watching the live stream that these other players have been 3-betting each other, and they've been doing it light in some cases. And with what we've seen, that is a profitable, albeit risky spot to go ahead and surf it in the middle with sixes.
Dominic, by the way, down to about 36 big blinds.
He's still got, I mean, he doesn't have to panic. You know, he can grind this out for several hours, pick his spots.
Mateos has 1,801 blinds.
Yeah, because I think
I might be exaggerating a little bit, but
yeah, maybe.
he's really deep.
But I think a common mistake that a lot of new people to poker make is that they look at where they are in terms of the average. You should be looking at where you are in terms of the structure and how much play, you know, the structure and the time on the clock allows you. You know, it's 30 odd big blinds is still fine 3-handed. You can still do some damage to their stacks.
Well, again, more pressure on the short stack. Dominic raises, a 3-bet from Mateos. Fabrice gets out of the way.
I'm really looking forward actually to seeing the whole cards, because I've been seeing them with the whole cards face down all day, and you build up an idea in your head of how people are playing, but you're like, well, maybe they're just running good, or maybe they just knew that this is a good time to, you know, to press the action. So it's going to be good to see.
Nietzsche gives it up. Mark Convey, McLean Carr, David Tuckman in the booth here for the 7th Annual World Series of Poker Europe. We're here for the main event, the final 3 up top, 1 million euros.
Not to be sniffed at.
Yeah, it's always nice whenever there's a tournament prize that's in the 7-figure zone. You only get so many of those tournaments a year that get up to be that big of a purse. And when you see that 7 figures, it just has a special sort of feel and look to it. It's really,
it's called slider in the mouth when you're drooling.
Yes.
What are you guys expecting before we left for dinner, that last 50 minutes after we lost Shigshээ? We saw it was really the Adrian Matteo show. He put on a show. He took chips from both his opponents. What are you expecting now after dinner break, considering that these players probably did get some information from their friends?
Well, I think we should expect to see more of the same. I mean, they're in pretty much the same position, game theory-wise, that they were before. We might see some other players choosing to play back at him in a few more spots.
Well, sure enough, Nietzsche has 3-bet Mateos' raise.
But I think we will expect to see Mateos continue to put the aggression on, although he might be wary that the other players are starting to be wise to his wider range.
Yeah, it's easy to 3-bet these guys.
But it's not like it was a secret either.
No.
He was playing so many hands.
You would expect him to always, in that scenario, with the ICM implications of a 200k jump between 3rd and 2nd. You know, 200,000 is a lot of money.
Right,
when do you normally catch for 200,000 in a tournament on its own? You know.
Mateos
very rarely
calls, and there, as you mentioned, 210,000 euro difference between 2nd and 3rd. Mateos calls, action on Nietzsche. Ace, Queen, 6, 2 diamonds, and a quick bet, a quick fold for Mateos. And Nietzsche was just messing around.
Mateos loves the 9-8 suited, but this time it did not come through for him.
That's so a pretty ugly flop for 9-8 clubs.
Yeah.
So Nietzsche needed those chips for sure. He's back up over 1.5 million. Mateos still at right around 7 million, and Fabrice Soulier looking to become the first Frenchman to win the World Series of Poker Europe main event. Is on right around 2.7 million.
Dominic small blind, Adrian big blind, Fabrice on the button.
Now you mentioned you were not surprised by Benny Spindler early on, how aggressive he played. And I noticed right away, it looked like he wanted this tournament to be over by 3 o'clock.
It's just
Either
the way
win
he
it or
plays.
lose it.
Well, he knew that he had a shockingly bad seat at the table as well. He would have looked at the opponents directly to his left. He's got the big stacks there, so he probably, in his own mind, he's thought, right, they're going to be people putting pressure on me. I've got to expect to have to 4-bet light quite a lot to get back in this, get back in this tournament. Didn't work out for him, but
But you say get back in this tournament. He had 1.7 million chips. He had 93 big blinds.
I know, but he's a great front runner. It's like get him in the lead, get him in front in his own mind. He'll just run over a table.
9 of spades and 8 of hearts.
Fair enough. King 8-9, 2 spades out there.
C5 checks.
Dominic is the pre-flop raiser. He made it 90,000. Mateos calls.
Adrian bets 100,000.
This is blind on blind. Pot is 295,000. It's 100K back over to Dominic, and he's going to check raise.
200.
3 raise.
65.
265,000 for Dominic.
The good thing is we've got 3 guys who really want to win this. No one's going to hang around for second too much. There is the ICM implications, but
Adrian makes the call.
Adrian makes the call. This pot now 725,000 chips. It's only about a little bit over 11 million chips in play, so over 5,000, over 5% of the chips in play in this pot.
That's not a blank turn card.
That is definitely on the blank. That is an action card on the turn. Could help. It for sure helps one of the players. Might even help both.
Straight flush over nut flush.
Makes a lot of 2 pairs for people who had straight draws, or not for people who had straight draws, but
combination draws.
Yeah, so now they have a pair and a draw
90.
for your jack 10s or queen 10s.
Dominic bets 290,000.
Is this a worried look? Is this a Hollywood look?
Now Dominic raised from the small blind, check raised the flop, and now leads out on the jack of spades. What do we think, before we even get to this gentleman, what do we think Dominic has?
Well, with the check raise, he's probably either semi-bluffing with a strong draw or has a big hand to begin with. I would guess that the hands in his range would probably be sort of jack 10 type hands, flush draws.
Mateos gives it
all
up.
These hands improve. Nietzsche, though,
Dominic takes the
also
pot.
does it with a hand that doesn't have a lot of value.
Wow. Strong play.
He check raises the flop after raising pre-flop, and then bets on that jack of spades, and he gets Mateos to fold the pair of 9s.
Well, and he's repping all those hands that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so, because those are in his range as well, he can play like he just has a really strong hand there.
Big blind.
Yeah, he paints a pretty picture.
Yeah.
Now, while the jack of spades actually didn't help either player,
Well,
it
did help Dominic because it
helped
gave
him
him a
get-
flush
yeah.
draw.
Right, and
The not low flush, like.
and it certainly made it easier for him, where if you think, okay, my opponent was check raising me either with a made hand or a big draw, that jack of spades can't hurt the draw. So much tougher for your opponent to continue on with just a pair of 9s.
Right, so now you're thinking he either had me all along or he got there in some way with that turn card, or at the very least, he has a lot of outs to the river. It's tough to continue with the 9-6.
Fabrice calls.
Mateos raises from the small blind. Fabrice calls, so Fabrice will be in position. Ace high flop, 2
And the
spades.
flop comes 3 of clubs, ace of spades, 10 of spades. 100,000.
If you're just joining us,
Adrian.
this is the 2013 World Series of Poker Europe main event. We came back today with 6 players. Within about 32 hands, we lost Benny Spindler. We're now
Fabrice
3-handed. Fabrice Soulier in the black,
Turn is a king.
looking to win his second
Turn.
World Series of
King
Poker
of
bracelet.
diamonds.
C7 checks.
Check.
Adrian Mateos, 19
Adrian.
years old. Still with the chip lead, but he's given some of those chips back. Dominic Nietzsche. with some aggressive play with a 6-4 and deuces.
Yeah,
has clawed his way back in a little bit.
He has kept the aggression up very high, and he kind of got beat up a little bit when he turned up the gears mid last level, but he's stuck with it and is now chipping up again.
There's nothing like a good pep talk with your bros over dinner to give you the confidence to go back in.
That's true, and he's the short stack right now, so he has a little less to worry about. He's the one who can maybe justify gambling a little bit more than the other players and turn up the aggression, and no one wants to double him up.
Check,
and
check.
Make him a factor again.
Adrian shows Jack of Diamonds.
Mateos with a pair of 10s. Fabrice Soulier
Big draw.
did not bet the turn, and then checked it down when he hit his pair of 6s. Easy for us to say, obviously, he missed the bet. But without being results-oriented, do you think Fabrice missed the bet?
I don't know. He's got a lot of cards that could help him, and he doesn't want to get folded out. Mateos has been playing pretty aggressively. And, you know, honestly, with this hand, Mateos might have found a raise because it's really not strong enough to probably call down with. And it's a great card to bluff with the bottom pair and the straight blocker. So Fabrice might have gotten folded out of the equity of seeing the flush on the river or chopping with the straight.
85,000 from the button.
Mateos back up to about 6.8 million. Fabrice at 2.5 million. And Dominic Nietzsche has clawed his way back up to 1.9 million. He's actually added about 33% to his stack in the last, say, 6 or 7 hands. We are playing 20,000, 40,000 with a 5,000 ante for 90 minutes, or 76 more minutes, I should say.
Yeah, he's come out firing.
It's good to see.
It is good to see.
There's the 3-bet.
Dominic.
And Nietzsche's going to take that one down.
This time he had the goods.
Dominic back up over 2 million chips. And one thing about him, from what I've seen,
Button moves round to Fabrice.
is he's not quite as crazy as Spindler. But he's aggressive enough that he's certainly not going to sit around and let his opponent push him around. And as you mentioned, McLean, you mentioned once he was a short stack and he's down to 1.5, 1.6 million. He has the least amount to lose. He's already locked in at 400,000 euros, so why not gamble a little bit?
Yeah, and
Mix it up.
To be honest, we like you said earlier, we're calling him a short stack, but he's the relative short stack, and all these plays. He can still get away and have a stack that is still viable to come back and win the tournament. So he's not making life-risking bluffs here either. He's just dialing up the aggression a little bit.
Fabrice raises to 85,000 on the button, just a little bit over minimum.
Here comes Dominic again.
What did he eat for dinner?
I don't know, but I want it. Brain food. There you go. Saw that omega-3.
Adrian folds the big blind.
I don't think he had sushi here.
Action background.
It was on the main street, I think.
It's okay. It's not the greatest sushi I've ever had. Salmon's nice.
Is that right?
Who would eat sushi in France? Why would you do that to yourself?
Just because I've been here 2 weeks, you get a bit bored of all the food.
Well, Igor was telling me that I saw him on the street near the sushi place, and he said the sushi place has a great foie gras sushi with mango. So apparently it's a French fusion. They bring in the foie gras.
Didn't know that.
Sushi. So he said that he was going to order 6 rolls, and that was all he was ordering, just 6 rolls of that.
Wow.
So a lot of rolls of sushi.
It's a lot of rolls.
Fabrice gives it up, and another pot for Nietzsche.
It's not
so Dominic now up over 2.1 million.
It's not surprising to see Dominic so aggressive as well, having position on Fabrice. Fabrice is the other play with the short stack. They've got to be worrying about each other.
We like to keep the show as interactive as possible. If you have any questions, any comments, you want to say hi, you can tweet us at WSOP. You can tweet me at Tuck on Sports. Joining me in the booth, Mark Conde, McLean Carr. Mark travels the entire world, and I am not at all being facetious when I say this. I mean the entire world covering poker.
I haven't been to Africa.
How many countries have you been to for poker?
Oh, off the top of my head, I have no idea. Maybe like...
Over 60?
No.
Over 40?
No.
Really?
That's a lot of countries.
That's a lot of countries.
All you do is travel. Do you
I
even
know,
have, you
but
have
You
a
go
whole-
to a lot of the same ones
Yeah,
repeatedly.
I go to like the same
Comes
8 or 9
ten of
EPT
spades,
stops a
three
year.
of
I go to
diamonds,
Vegas every
queen
year,
of
probably
spades.
Australia once a year. So, you know, there's probably only
Maximum
between 10 and
medium.
15 countries that I regularly visit.
I would guess that you're in the 20s, though.
Oh, I'm in the 20s overall because a lot of countries have had stops that now
Right.
don't have stops. And,
Fabrice checks.
you know, been to like places like Peru once and, you know,
The turn is
Ukraine
the
once.
ace of
Oh,
diamonds.
you might be 30 then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C7 bet 300.
I was in the Ukraine with you, David.
Adrian bets
Yes.
300,000.
Back in, was that in 2008?
08, 09, something like that. Yeah, around
Kiev.
those days. Yeah.
That was a fun stop. I like Kiev.
Yeah.
Great
me
city.
too.
Gorgeous city.
Yeah?
Gorgeous women.
Unbelievable
People
women.
say that a lot about the Eastern European women.
Mateos puts 300,000 and a call from Fabrice, and this pot is now 815,000.
Fabrice
Now
calls.
Mateos was the pre-flop raiser. Fabrice called. Flop of Queen 10-3, went check check, and now Mateos bombs away 300,000
diamonds
and gets
on the
called.
river.
And a bit of an action card on the river.
Yeah, a lot of draws come in. Got some gold plaques, is that right? They're new ones.
700,000.
Those are 500,000 each. That's 700,000.
700,000.
Wow.
So he bet 700 into 815. Last time we saw him bet huge relative to the pot, he had the flush, he had the goods.
Maybe he's aware that Fabrice is aware of that now. If he's,
Very much so.
yeah,
That's a dynamic that these guys have to be aware of and
Yeah.
adapt and adjust.
Soulier's crack team of analysts and experts locked away in a cupboard somewhere with 6 laptops and
Although wrapped up with scarves too.
yeah, in support.
It's a huge bet. He could even have a flush here, hoping to get paid with a straight, or at least try to make it seem like this.
I got a tweet from Des Duffy, who's rooting for Fabrice. So I know he's hoping that Fabrice makes the right move here. Is it interesting that he bombed away on the turn? It was a big bet. It was 300,000 on the turn. The 9 of diamonds seemingly changes a lot, yet he's still bombing away.
It feels like he might have the diamonds and have got there.
So he was trying to,
I
he was trying to
don't- I
buy
don't
it on the
know.
turn, and then he got there?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's the story he's
Fabrice
telling.
folds.
But he's just making a big value bet with 2
Adrian
pair.
takes down the pot.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
a big
king high.
lead.
Can I see
Oh
one?
no, Mateos. Oh
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
He got Fabrice off the 2 pair.
So that is a
Stunning.
good.
Did you have
He's
like,
trying to rep diamonds.
Right.
Yeah, and
Right.
and
That's
as you
the
said,
story he's telling.
and what we said before, David, the fact that you know he did it
I was just
before
guessing
bombs
one
when he had
has
it, he
absolutely
knew
no
that
sense. I
his
said,
opponent might have seen that,
that's
use that to
50
his
plus.
advantage.
And I don't think Soulier can ever fold a straight there, so it's a risky
That's one on TV,
bet because he might have a lot of hands
That's
that
one I'm
get
looking
there
forward
with the straight, and he would probably make a crying call with that at the very least.
Well, and that's kind of the point I was going at. When you bomb away on a turn,
Yeah, but
Small bet.
You-
good bet.
I'm assuming one of 2 things is going on. Either A, you're trying to buy the pot,
Think he had it.
or
You think he
B,
had it?
you've already missed
I would have
one
called if I
streak
didn't.
of betting, so you're trying to make up and build that pot up because you've got a big hand.
Right.
Well, if you've already got a big hand, the 9 of diamonds changes everything. That's a huge, I mean, the straight gets there, the flush gets there.
Right.
So then you're looking at it going, well,
Don't think he had it.
then maybe he was bombing away
Yeah.
with the diamond draw, trying to buy it on the turn, and he got there. I mean, at least that's the story that Fabrice bought.
A diamond draw or a king jack to where maybe he had the nut straight and would hope that a smaller straight would maybe call,
Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure
or
it's the
some
same.
other big hand. But
I bet you 500 he had it.
Oh, hear that?
ooh,
What did he say?
So Dominic reckons he was bluffing.
I can't
Fabrice says, "I'll
take
bet you 500 he had
I
it."
can't take your money. Fabrice, I can't take your money. I mean, I can't take any more of your money. That's just not nice.
Oh, needle! Needle from
It's not
Nietzsche.
your money.
Deal.
Wow. Well, they'll find out
Fair
in
enough.
30 minutes when
Folds from the button.
the stream catches up. They will find out. It's actually 15 minutes. Pardon me. So in 15 minutes, they will find out. And I tell you, if Mateos factored in earlier on that he bombed away with the flush, and that this time he bombs away with the bluff,
6-7 raises.
Adrian
if he realized that maybe my opponent saw that before, and I can kind of That's a strong play.
It's a
Got to
really
give him a lot of
strong
credit.
play,
Well,
yeah.
and as a
Dominic
good
calls.
poker player, you're aware of
And you flop.
all previous
Dominic
hands are
Adrian.
part of the current hand that you're in,
The flop comes
and he knows that
king
he
of
was
spades,
able to
nine
do
of
that, and he's
diamonds,
setting that up so that
jack
later
of
on he can
spades.
make big bluffs, and that's the advantage of having a
Dominic
balanced
checks,
big
7
bet
checks.
in your range,
Adrian checks.
to where you can get people to fold out, or you can get them to pay you off and get max
Turns
value
4 of hearts.
when you have the big hand or the big
Yeah.
bluff. So
Both
it gives
players
you some really strong tools in your kit.
I'm curious to see, and we haven't seen a ton of action on this board after a raise and a call. Nietzsche finally finds himself a bet, and Mateos is not going to get involved.
Adrian folds.
I'm
So Dominic
curious
takes
if the
the
river is a blank, what Mateos does.
I think he makes a similar type of bet, and
Gets called.
Fabrice calls.
Yeah.
Fabrice calls.
I mean, he may have been very astute that he put Fabrice on the value hand already by the fact that he was able to call his bomb on the turn. But I mean, McLean made another good point as well, that there was still a lot of value hands on the turn that could improve on the river. You know, he could have had like a pair and a flush draw or something that
Yeah, or a
would have
pair
shown
and a
that.
straight draw.
A pair and a straight draw, sorry, is
Right.
what I meant. Yeah, or a pair and a flush draw. Yeah. So it's a very, very brave move.
Nonetheless, though, Mateos back over 7 million
Dominic
chips.
raises to
Fabrice
80,000.
down below 2 million now
Adrian
in our
folds
short
to small
stack.
blind.
And let's see if he starts feeling the pressure, because he hasn't been the short stack, I don't think, at all.
But again, it's the short stack, but he's still very, very deep. So it's, I mean, you've got to ignore the fact this guy's got 7 million. You've got to think, okay, I've only got 2 million, but there's so much play.
And Mark, and he 3-bets here, Fabrice 3-bets. I think, rationally speaking, you're 100% correct. But when you're sitting at the table, I question how the emotions don't get involved. This is a guy who, he had 2.8 million at one point. At some point, he had 3. When they started three-handed play, he had over 3 million chips. Now he's got below 2 million.
But this is Fabrice at the table, though. This is
Right.
Fabrice who's won a 10K World Series of Poker horse event, who's, you know, final table Partouche, final table EPTs, final table WPTs, who's been playing poker professionally for 15 years. He's been here, he's seen it, he knows the game. So he's not going to panic, you know.
That's good on this
I agree,
moment
if
when
it's
you
someone
think
like
you're
Hugh J, who's in the same spot at this point, then he may be looking at the 7 million and thinking, you know, I've got to catch up.
7 minus to 85,000.
But Fabrice,
might not be
I'm
true,
not so
you know?
sure.
85,000 from the button.
Fabrice back up to 2.1 million.
You never
Mateos
know.
raising on the button.
Never know.
The plaques, the blue plaques are 100,000.
Looks easy.
The yellow gold plaques, those are 500K each. The red chips are 25K. The gray chips, fairly insignificant at this point. Those are 5K.
Dominic thinking of raising here, maybe? Yep.
It's kind of a foregone conclusion.
Re-raise.
I think 70% of the hands are 3-bet at this point. Seems like it, at least.
Dominic.
It's great for us. I want to see these pots big.
Adrian calls.
It's definitely a bit more exciting when
Yeah.
there's some out there to play for, you know.
Definitely.
Flop comes
3-bet
10
and a
of
call.
hearts,
Queen
of
10
spades,
deuce.
2 of diamonds.
Rainbow.
Action
Pot is
Dominic.
485,000 chips. Dominic first to speak. With so many 3-betting with so much 3-betting going on, are these guys actually playing, even though they're 50 big blinds or 70 big blinds or 150 big blinds, are they actually shallower than they normally would be because the pots are so large pre-flop?
Adrian
I don't know if they're shallower. It's just we're at 3-handed now, so people should be playing more aggressively, widening the ranges and going for more
turns
pots.
3 of clubs.
They're still very deep,
Fair enough.
and they're still aware of the fact that they can get involved in some medium to large size pots and still cut their losses and have, you know, a shot to crawl back.
5 bites. 290.
I keep waiting for one of these players to grab, because he's got his blue chips right on top of his gold chips, his gold plaques. I keep waiting for him to grab the wrong plaque.
Yeah, I love the plaques with the little chips on top though. It's like you're serving up a raise on a dinner plate. It's like, take that.
I don't think Mateos is really going anywhere this
No,
hand.
he clearly is not. There's a
Adrian
bet
makes
and there's a
a call.
call in this pot.
And
Now nearly 1.5 million chips.
He's both playing very fast in this pot.
5 of diamonds on
River's a
river.
blank.
What would you want if you, McLean, if you were Fabrice Sully in this spot? Who would you want to win the pot in terms of dynamics?
Oh, I
someone
mean,
to stretch clear or just to secure place
I
in second?
want Mateos to win the pot. I'll take the second, get it heads up. I'm so deep heads up, I can slowly chip away at it.
It's not like a 21,000 euro difference. It's a 210,000 euro difference in 30 seconds.
So lock up that and then reassess and try and grind your way back.
What is the minimum hand that Nietzsche is betting for value here?
I mean, with 3 barrels.
3 barrels. He 3-bet pre-flop. He bet 180.
I'm trying to determine if
he bet 290 and then 400.
I'm trying to guess if he would still do this with 9s, but I don't think you would. So
for value,
I've seen sicker. I think he probably has a really good 10 here.
Ace 10
at the least, or he could do it with a king 10, but I would say king 10 and better.
And that would be for value,
right?
And what are you doing right now if you're Mateos and you've got Jack 10?
You're hating the spot, but maybe thinking about turning it into a bluff. But now he's kind of just
too late. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough with that run out, right?
Yeah, and it's tough with kind of the dynamics with how it played. It's not really making a lot of sense, maybe.
I mean, you called the flop with ace 4.
But it is possible that Dominic is bluffing the whole way. He could have had an ace king and been betting for value at first and turning it into a bluff now. He could have had a king jack. He could even have an ace jack, an ace 9, all sorts of stuff.
Clearly capable of it. We've seen that.
And
there's a call.
Good call, probably.
And Dominic taps the table.
Oh, Nietzsche. Yeah, see.
Wow, what a call by Mateos.
That's what I was thinking. You could maybe value 9s there.
That'd be so sick.
Yeah, I mean.
You called it. You said, hey, value bet 9s. Why not? That is an absolutely sick call by Mateos. He calls with 7s. Dominic with absolutely nothing. He 3-bet with Jack 4 and then triple barreled, and he is now down to 1 million chips or 25 big blinds.
It was a tough story to tell, and he just looked like he was in auto bet mode there.
Yeah, he did, and he's been so aggressive since he's come back as well. Was his image really right at that stage to do that?
Yeah, I mean. He's got to have. I would expect him to take a little more time with a good 10. I'm saying that he could value bet those, but he played it like he either had an ace queen or maybe a kings or nothing, and he just has those. With how much he's been 3-betting, those aren't in his hands enough. So.
Well, now Mateos, as you saw on the graphic, with over 70% of the chips in play. Dominic Nietzsche with just 25 big blinds, and now what's the strategy? What's plan B if you're Dominic?
For Dominic, it's just try to crawl back now. You still have plenty of chips. You can even 3-bet all in with some decent hands, or look for a cold 4-bet spot. But Fabrice hasn't really been 3-betting too much pre-flop.
All in?
Getting all in here.
All in.
One time, Adrian.
Yeah, Fabrice doesn't want to play it tough.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. That's a brave move right there, considering Dominic's chip stack.
That just blows me away, considering that Dominic just lost half his stack. He only has 1 million. Fabrice is in great shape to possibly just cruise his way into second. He just risked his whole tournament with ace 5.
Fabrice might have a read. He might just have a little feeling for how it's going right there. He might be onto something.
Player.
Old school live pro.
He is a great live pro, and because Dominic is a little bit shorter now, he knows that if he lets it go to the streets, he might get moved off his hands, as he has a number of times already. And so might as well try to take it down while he's ahead instead of getting moved off later.
Because of the dynamic that Nietzsche is so short, does his shove look even stronger?
I would expect Mateos to interpret that as being stronger.
That's what I mean.
And Mateos doesn't need to double him up with Nietzsche being so low. So it's hard for Mateos to call except with like a premium hand there. And the fact that Fabrice has one ace and hasn't done this move a lot, it's just not that likely he's going to get called.
I mean, does he get ace jack to fold?
Probably.
That's pretty strong, man.
Maybe not, but probably.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're in a situation where, okay, you're getting called by, big pairs, you're getting called by ace king, you're getting called by ace queen possibly,
yeah.
That's it.
You probably set the line right there with ace jack. You know, that's
and you've still got, even against the better aces or the big pairs, you've still got that
Still have
equity left. You know, every once in a while you double up there and you're the chip leader.
That's the one thing when you have an ace.
Yeah.
The one thing is when you have an ace in your hand, it's very unlikely your opponent has aces. And if they don't have aces, pretty much always have at least 30% equity.
Well, I guess he wouldn't be the chip leader in this case. He would have been before the last hand where Dominic gave up $1 million.
Now, Mateos is just a beast right now. He's now got almost 8 million chips. There's just a little bit over 11 million in play. We are inside the theater at the Casino Berriere. Mark Convey, Mr. McLean, David Tuckman here for the final three of the World Series of Poker Europe main event. How many times have people assumed that your first name was your last name?
All the time. It's happened many times. And actually, it does originally come from our last name. It was my grandmother's maiden name on my father's side.
Oh, that's great.
My first name. So
it's a good story.
They aren't far off.
Much better story than mine. Mine was just, my parents thought I was going to be a girl and had no idea. Oh, then what? David sounds good, sure.
David does sound good. David's a fine name.
6, 5, 4, 2 hearts. Pot's 195,000. Goes check, check.
David defeated Goliath.
That's true.
And it's a 9 of hearts.
One of the most lauded underdogs.
Nietzsche checking once again.
Dom now, the underdog, to come back on this.
Very much so.
Spanish Goliath to his left.
Mateos now bets 200,000. And a quick laydown. Must be, wow, Nietzsche just snap folds the king jack with the king of hearts.
He hasn't really got the wriggle room to make too many speculative plays as he did before. He's got to play a bit more solid, I think.
But this one might have been, he has a better shot at this one than some of his earlier ones.
I know. We can see the cards.
Yes.
I mean, clearly at the break, Dominic, whether he talked to his friends or not, he came back from the break with the strategy of, I'm going to play more aggressive. I'm going to take it to my opponents. Unfortunately for him, it was going really well until that one hand.
And that's kind of a truism of poker right there. It works every time until the last time, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to know when to turn off the faucet and dial it back a little bit. So
it's such a fine line. If Mateos folds the sevens, and Dom is up to 2.6 million, 2.7 million, we're singing an entirely different tune.
Yeah, big time.
Right.
He's boosting his confidence even more.
Very wet board. 10, 7, 9, 2 spades. Mateos bets 100,000, and Fabrice, well, this ace-5 doesn't get to the turn.
Adrian takes the top.
It's tough to win after the flop, see? It's hard to make a hand, even though you have a pretty little ace-5 suited, which is usually the best hand three-way. You get to the flop, and it's really hard to connect.
Remember when you first started playing poker, and you'd look down at ace-king, and you'd just be beside yourself when you didn't connect?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't I flop this?
Injustice.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't realize that you're only going to, if you start off pre-flop without a pair, you're only going to flop a pair 1 out of 3 times.
There's a time for me back in, I think, 2004, where I was playing online on Party Poker, and whenever I get ace-king, just regardless of how deep I was, I'd pretty much just move all in with it. Which was actually...
How'd that work out for you?
It wasn't a bad move back then, because people just were not very aware of stack sizes, and you'd get called on a regular basis by ace-queen, ace-jack, and every once in a while, an ace-10 suited.
We got a raise here and an all-in. And a decision.
1 million?
It's 950,000. How light are you calling if you're Mateos? Mark?
Well, any pair, I don't know.
Any pair?
Yeah, I think probably any pair. Maybe.
I wouldn't call any pair. I'd probably have to have at least
5, 6s?
5s or 6s is probably where it is. I might err on the side of 6s because I have such a good lead and doubling up Dominic. I don't know, it's not so bad. But then, yeah, I think an ace-7 suited, ace-8 maybe ace-8 suited.
Good luck.
Adrian makes the call.
Here we go.
He makes the call.
Adrian shows ace of spades, 7 of hearts.
A7, right where you said.
Unsuited.
And Nietzsche with
9-8.
9-8. Well, Nietzsche's got live cards.
Ace,
That's a
7,
really
Adrian,
wide shove for
9,
Nietzsche.
8 offsuit
I would have
for Dominic.
liked to see him wait for a better spot.
I don't think his mind's there at the minute.
It certainly feels like these players are shallower than they actually are. I mean, maybe there's a panic. I don't know if it's a meltdown by Dominic. What
I
do you guys
think it is a borderline
I
meltdown
think
a little
it is,
bit.
yeah, I think
As much as I hate to say it,
Jack of
it's
hearts,
just
3 of spades,
he's got
5
so
of
many
clubs.
chips right now.
For the
He
flop.
doesn't need to press the action at this point. He can wait for a better hand,
Adrian
especially
ahead.
because he's played so many.
Ace,
He
7.
could have waited an orbit or two for something a little bit better.
That was a 24
agree.
big blind 3-bet shove.
Turn.
And he is
Turn.
down to just one
3 of
card,
hearts.
needs a 9 or an 8, or he is gone in 3rd place.
Need an ace or a 9.
Mark's deuces are
Save
still ahead.
Dominic.
See, I knew
Any
he was
pair.
shoving so light. That's why my range was wider than yours.
6 of clubs means that Dominic leaves 3rd place.
Well, there it is, Dominic
Rise
Nietzsche,
to
the
400,000.
German bracelet winner, burst in the live poker scene back in 2009. And he has had great results ever since. He adds a 3rd place finish in the World Series of Poker Europe main event to his poker resume. And he'll pocket 400,000 euros for his efforts. But this is one that he might think about for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll review this, and he's a very analytical player, and I think he's very
It's the only way I
honest with his
triple
play,
barrel
which is
that
one of the
board. It's
reasons.
ridiculous. I had nothing.
Let's hear it for a second.
Say call either way, man. Good luck.
He was berating his own play, basically.
Yeah, and you know what? I have a ton of respect for Dominic.